Welcome back. Well, there is a book called The Trudeau Report, and it is about Justin Trudeau. It was written by the former Ethics Commissioner, Mary Dawson, about the Trudeau family's repeated visits to Billionaire Island. That's the nickname of a secretive private island in the Bahamas owned by the Aga Khan, who's not only a very wealthy man and a businessman, but he's the spiritual leader of the world's moderate Ismaili Muslim faith. Well, the Aga Khan has a lot of economic dealings with the government of Canada, grants and other projects. And so this Trudeau report was a study into whether or not Trudeau breached the conflict of interest laws by taking this secret vacation. The short answer is yes, he did. It's worth a read, though, to see just the lengths that Trudeau went to justify this secret trip. And to me, what I'll never forget is how Trudeau's family, for example, his wife, repeatedly called the Aga Khan and said, can we come back to the island? There was one case documented in the Trudeau report where Sophie Trudeau called the princess, the Aga Khan's daughter, and said, can we come and visit? And the princess said, well, we're not there. And Sophie Trudeau said, oh, that's fine. We just want to use your place. It was shocking. Well, now we have more interesting news that's less shocking and more hopeful. A federal judge has ordered the Commissioner of Lobbying to reopen an investigation of Trudeau from a lobbyist point of view. Well, joining us now to figure this whole thing out is our expert in such matters. You know him, Manny Montenegrino, a former senior lawyer in Ottawa, former lawyer to Prime Minister Stephen Harper, and the boss of Think Sharp. Manny, great to see you again.
Nice to see you, Ezra.
The Trudeau report is fascinating reading to show the shenanigans that Trudeau got up to from an ethics point of view. But tell us what this court order means that now the lobbying commissioner must reinvestigate Trudeau.
Yeah, no, it says a lot. There's a lot of legalities in the report. And Ezra, I want to make it kind of simple for your viewers on a particular point. The federal court rarely intervenes in a quasi-judicial matter. And what basically that means is courts are very hesitant to give opinions or interfere in the operations of quasi-judicial or governmental type of decision-making process. And it's very simple why. Courts don't want to be making decisions for all these bodies. And so they say, go at it, make your own decisions. But if you breach and really substantially breach your duties of natural justice, and that means you really got to make a big mistake, the courts will step in. And that's a very rare use of the court's powers over these quasi-judicial bodies. Well, it happened, and that is alarming. I'm surprised that we are not seeing great reports about this, because what the federal court said, and it just didn't say you made a few mistakes, it was a complete indictment of the quasi-judicial offer that investigated the Aga Khan and the free trips by Trudeau. It said it lacked transparency. It lacked justification. It was an unreasonable deliberation of the process. I mean, that is basically saying, the court is saying, you didn't even do your job. And that's frightening for every Canadian, because, and I'll tie it to the obstruction of justice and the SNC Lavalin case. Ezra, we know what the Prime Minister has done. He silenced 2 cabinet ministers with his privilege, enforcing privilege on them, so we don't get the whole story. He silenced the Justice Committee, so we don't get the story. He silenced the Ethics Committee, and he points to Canadians and says, yeah, but we have the Ethics Commissioner, they're going to look at it. Well, the federal court has said these quasi-judicial bodies are barely doing their job. So it's extremely alarming.
Yeah. You know, I take your point, and for non-lawyers, a general court doesn't want to pretend they're an expert in the narrow field of lobbying or the narrow field, I don't know, the Liquor Control Board. They want to defer to these expert agencies and only interfere when there's something grossly wrong. Can I quote to you from Justice Patrick Gleason? That's the federal judge that made this very rare intervention. I want to quote from his ruling, and I'm reading from Blacklock's Reporter. So this is the judge. The commissioner, that's the lobbying commissioner, was required to take a broad view of the circumstances in addressing the complaint. Instead, the record before the court reflects a narrow, technical, and targeted analysis that is lacking in transparency, justification, and intelligibility when considered in the context of the commissioner's duties and functions. The decision is unreasonable. That's tough talk. I mean, judges are very polite people. They're like diplomats in a way, but that's a judge tearing a strip off the lobbyist commissioner, isn't it?
Absolutely. And it's alarming because the courts, as you say, never get involved, especially when you have a quasi-judicial body like the lobby commissioner or the ethics commissioner. They don't get involved in their work. And to do so is really making a very big statement. So we should be alarmed. And there's obviously much more with respect to this. We're talking about multiple trips. We're talking about at least $200,000 of free trips that the Prime Minister took. Now, normally there are, and Ezra, you can go through the criminal code, and I forget the section, and I tweeted it, but there's a mirror section in the criminal code dealing with a public official using its office in order to get a gain. And there is really something much more in this report, and you could see that the court is saying, you did do your job, you kind of hit it, it was pretty shoddy, do it again. And that's very alarming to Canadians.
Yeah. I see that now the new lobbying commissioner, Nancy Bélanger, has to examine what the Aga Khan's foundation did, because they're the lobbyists, so to speak. Do you think that this will require the PMO, Trudeau and his wife Sophie, who contacted the Aga Khan so much? Do you think the examination will be of their conduct, or do you think it'll focus on the Aga Khan? And I have to tell you, reading the Trudeau report from Mary Dawson, it is so clear to me that all of these initiatives, can we come to the island? Can we come to the island? Can we have a party at your place? Oh, I know you're not there. Can we use the place? It all came from the Trudeau family. In fact, reading it, it feels like the Aga Khan was sort of shocked that they just wanted to use him for his stuff. Maybe he should have reported it. But it's so evident to me reading that Trudeau report, this was all Trudeau. I don't think, Manny, that this was the Aga Khan trying to ingratiate himself. I think it was the opposite. I think he was saying, geez, this Prime Minister sure is taking advantage, but I guess I shouldn't say no. That's how it read to me.
Absolutely. And Ezra, you forgot the timing aspect. It was within months of the Prime Minister becoming the Prime Minister. It was a 9-month plan before they had their first trip. So they started it within a few months of being in office. They started, cashing in on the entitlements, and the Aga Khan was a perfect place to go. And why not go to a perfect island? And I agree, it should bleed into the Prime Minister and his family and whoever else went on the multiple trips. And I'm talking bleeding into points that, as you say, if it's proven that these were demands, and the Aga Khan knew that never has hosted a Canadian Prime Minister, and the Aga Khan felt pressure to do so, that will bring in, should bring in an investigation by the RCMP. Are you using your office in order to get a gain? And the answer to that question, from what I know now, what I see, starts months after he becomes Prime Minister. The family basically harasses the Aga Khan to give a family vacation. There are multiple vacations. They basically use it as a timeshare while they're in office. So that really raises a bigger issue. And will the RCMP pick up the report and say what really happened here? Was there an abuse? Was there a demand? Was there basically using your power in order to extract a gain for the family?
Yeah, aesthetically, the Trump family, I mean, he's a billionaire. You can argue how many billions, but luxury, private jets, hotels, glamour. How glamorous and how rich, I don't know, but that's a lifestyle. It seems to me, again, reading the Trudeau report of how Sophie Trudeau kept calling up and saying, can we come to the place? Can I bring my girlfriends So she wanted to go there and sort of show off to all her girlfriends, hey, girls' weekend out at this private island. And again, the Aga Khan's daughter said, well, we're not even going to be there. And so I think Sophie Trudeau liked it better that way.
Sure.
I mean, put yourself in that position, Manny. Let's say you had a really nice cottage somewhere, not a private island in the Bahamas, a really nice cottage, and the wife of someone who you vaguely knew said, can I come and use it? And of course you weren't friends. I mean, you only talked to Justin Trudeau once in 30 years, the Aga Khan, and let alone you never met his wife. But are you really, it's so much chutzpah to ask, how could you even say no to that?
Well, yeah, that's one way of looking at it. So I'm going to look at it from the Aga Khan's point of view. The Aga Khan has been doing very good work worldwide and in Canada, and has worked with Canada and has successfully obtained funding for the good work. Now, think about it. There's a change in government. There's a person that's in government. Wife gives you a call within a few months, and you must feel that there is this threat over your head. And I'm not saying these are allegations. These are something that has to be investigated by either the police or someone. But if you're the Aga Khan and you've been doing work with Canada for years and years and years, and very good work for the Ismaili community and for charities, and you get a call within months of the leader, of the new prime minister's wife wanting to have a girls' weekend or a girls' week at your premises, and you feel pressured, and you feel you have to say yes when you probably would say no, but you're worried because this prime minister, and we've heard, gets what he wants. He gets what he wants at the risk of perhaps maybe losing the funding you've received for years. And we saw what the prime minister has done with the attorney general when he gets what he wants. So the real concern I have is how much pressure, and you've alluded to some of it, how much pressure was put on the Aga Khan? How much did he relent? Why did he relent? Was it even spoken? Was it even threatened? And these are questions that have to be asked. And if they're anywhere approaching the answer that yes, pressure, yes, perhaps funding, millions of dollars of funding would be lost to the Ismaili purpose, their charitable purpose. And they said, yes, you can have my island while I'm away because they were afraid. This is a big, big case that has to be reviewed and reported on. And I'm just surprised that it's not. And it's alarming to me.
Yeah. You know, the only other First Lady, I know we don't use that term in Canada, that I know is Lorraine Harper, who's as down to earth as they come. She's a country girl from Turner Valley, Alberta. Just folks, plain, like super normal gal. And the idea that she would call up some world leader's daughter to get access to some, luxury retreat, it's unthinkable. I mean, but here's my question to you. Is it really that this is the first and only time Trudeau, or even his wife Sophie Gregoire Trudeau, did this? I put it to you, Manny, that when you grow up a trust fund millionaire, Justin Trudeau, son of a trust fund millionaire, Pierre Trudeau, and you have the famous last name, and you're handsome, and you have cachet and charisma, that your life is like this, that you ask for things and you quite often get them. Here's my question to you, and again, it's just speculation, but if you have the chutzpah to ask a princess for access to a private island and you've never even met her, I'm guessing that's not the first and only time you've ever done that. And the reason I say that is there's a lot of valuable and rich and luxurious stuff out there. A private plane owned by Bombardier. We saw how SNC Lavalin treated Muammar Gaddafi's son with luxury. In his case, it was prostitutes and parties and hotel rooms. And so my worry is that Justin Trudeau and his wife Sophie Gregoire Trudeau are so used to this life of entitlement since Trudeau was a baby, that I think he just thinks it's normal to ask people for things. And I bet if we actually knew the full truth, he does this all the time.
Well, we've seen, again, your premise is soundly based, but let's look at the facts. There are facts that are known to the public where this has happened. The 8-day India trip I mean, that was a wonderful family vacation for the Trudeaus. It cost millions and millions of dollars, and then they had to kind of say, "Well, we got to make some business sense out of this, or it just looks absolutely obscene to the taxpayer." So they talked about a $250 million trade that they're going to get from India that was already there over a 5-year period. I think they spent more on the trip than the trade deal, but the trade deal was already there. So there's that one instance. Ezra, there's the other one where they bought the whole theater to see, I forget the play now. It was
Come From Away on Broadway.
Right. They bought the whole theater in New York.
And he gave $50 million to Trevor Noah. You know that late night comedian. He just said in a tweet, $50 million. How's that by you?
Yeah, so there's a lot of evidence that Trudeau does believe, Prime Minister Trudeau does believe he's entitled. So it wouldn't surprise me if the RCMP or if someone investigates this, there was strong demands about giving and I think they've used the property at least 2 times. One was a girls' week, and the other was with the Trudeau family. I mean, that's really bordering on too much. I don't know if there was a 3rd or 4th vacation. It said multiple vacations, and I don't know what that means. But if it was more than once, more than twice, and you're demanding and you're there when your hosts aren't there, clearly there's lots of evidence of that form of abuse. So there is a sense of entitlement. We heard the evidence that in the SNC Lavalin case that he gets what he wants. So why wouldn't he feel entitled? Yeah. And Ezra, let's go back to the beginning of time, if you will, under the Kitimavik, where he was a part of the Kitimavik association, where he traveled the world. Now, Ezra, at that time, I think Justin Trudeau was in his 20s, early 20s, and there was a wonderful Toronto Sun report on it. And if you can Google it and find it out, but basically it said that Trudeau, during this Kitimavik, was living higher on the hog than the president of Kitimavik. Wow. And he was just one of the kids, and he was spending $400 on lunches. Yeah. Hotel rooms were more luxurious than the president on this wonderful little, I'll call elitist little organization that took care of friends of the Trudeau and the like. So there's lots of evidence to prove and show that he's got a sense of entitlement, of government money entitlement, and therefore it wouldn't surprise me that he knew of the Aga Khan. They may have known that the Aga Khan gets 40 to 50 or hundreds of $1 million from the Canadian government over the years for doing wonderful charitable work, and they may have known that and said, well, this is a wonderful island. It's a private island, a billionaire island. No one will ever experience that. Money can't buy it. We put estimates of $200,000 on it, but money really can't buy a trip there. Yeah. And no one can be there. So it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. Let me throw one thing at you, and you just made me think of something, because, Manny, about 10 years ago, before I joined the Sun News Network TV station, I was sort of a jack of all trades. One of the things I did, in the 2008 election, I volunteered for Stephen Harper's campaign, and I wrote speeches occasionally for politicians. And I wrote 2 or 3 speeches for Senator Mike Duffy, and I charged, I don't know, a few grand for them or whatever.
Right.
It's one of the things I did to make a living before I got into the TV business. And so when the police investigated Mike Duffy for his expense account, they contacted me. And they met me, and they asked me all my dealings about Mike Duffy, and I had absolutely nothing to hide. I wrote the speeches; it was legit. I sent in the bill. I got paid. I didn't even think twice about it. I met the police in person. They recorded everything. They asked for evidence. I didn't have any objection. I gave it to them. I actually testified at the trial. I was cross-examined. It was a very, very small part to play, but they interviewed dozens. Like, I was a teeny tiny player, and I didn't do anything wrong. I just wrote a speech for the guy 10 years ago. My point is the amount of manpower and research and digging, and I was actually testified at trial for about an hour. Dozens of people. Hundreds of hours of police investigation over trivia that amounted to nothing. And Manny, I'm wondering, where are the cops with these massive scandals? My speeches that I wrote for Duffy were completely innocuous. I got paid a couple grand. It was legit, no problem. Where's the RCMP when it's a $200,000 secret vacation from a princess? Where's the RCMP when Jody Wilson-Raybould and Jane Philpotts are sacked? Where are they? They came and met with me over a speech for a couple grand. Where are they when it's something real and big?
Well, exactly. I mean, when you bring up the Duffy matter, there was absolutely no evidence of any wrongdoing except rumors and innuendos. And the RCMP sent a squadron of people, as you say, to investigate everybody, and charges were laid, and the court threw it out and found Senator Duffy's testimony credible. Now, all the RCMP has to do is pick up the Ethics Commissioner's 73-page report, which I did, which sets out the evidentiary fact of what could be criminal conduct by taking $200,000 from a person because you are the person of authority, you are the government official. So all they have to do is read the report. Now read this decision by the court. There's so much more evidence to at least begin an investigation, and it hasn't done. So you talk about entitlement. Absolutely. I mean, there is so much, and this is probably the tip of the iceberg. I will share with you one little story that I think you'd like to hear. On the first anniversary of Prime Minister Harper's being elected to government, I think it was January 26th, 2007. I was invited to 24 Sussex for a little party because it was just a thing to do. I couldn't go because my wife and I had booked a vacation. And I sent a very inexpensive bottle of champagne to say, sorry, I can't be there. Have a good time. They wouldn't take the champagne. The Prime Minister wouldn't take the bottle of champagne. He said, I mean, he didn't say this to me, but I inferred that he would not take any form of gift from anyone. And I remember thinking at that time, if we have a prime minister that won't even take, and by the way, Ezra, it was a cheap bottle of champagne because I'm a conservative. It wasn't one of those, it wasn't, and an immigrant, so, but it wasn't one of those, but it was, and I thought to myself, if this prime minister would not take a bottle of champagne, this is the most ethical prime minister we have. We have the complete total opposite now. Yeah. This is a fellow that thinks he's entitled to trips, to movie theaters, to everything, and it shows. And there's probably so much more.
What an amazing anecdote that is. And the two of you were friends, and it was just a bottle of wine, and people drink things anyways. And he wouldn't take that. It's just what a great reminder of how far we have fallen.
Yes.
Manny, it's great to talk to you about these things, and I'm glad we are, because I quoted from Blacklock's reporter, and I see there's a modest story in Global News, but this, if it were a conservative, would be front page.
It's a huge story because we're talking about basically, was there possibly some form of undue pressure? Now, we saw the SNC-Lavalin where there was nothing but pressure, continual pressure for 4 months by 10 people because the prime minister wanted something. You don't think that the Aga Khan experienced some form of pressure because they wanted to try a private island? I don't know. Yeah. I think so.
All right. Well, very interesting as always, Manny. We really are grateful to you for your wisdom and your experience, and I very much appreciate the anecdote of the bottle of wine. That's quite telling. Great to see you, man.
Champagne.
Sorry, champagne. There you go.
Cheap champagne.
Our friend Manny Montenegrino, he is the CEO of Think Sharp, and he joins us via Skype from Ottawa. That's an excerpt from the Ezra Levant show. Every day I do a video monologue, and then I interview an interesting guest, and then I end by reading my hate mail. But you've got to subscribe to it, which you can do at therebel.media/shows.